Okay,
You ready?
go for it.
Okay. Apparently the technology is working. So let me see if I can share here. I remind my students when they're in online meetings, remember to remove all the porn from your screen before you start sharing.
And mute yourself if you're not muted.
Can you see the PowerPoint? Everybody's favorite thing. Can everybody see the screen, the image that I'm projecting? You can. Okay, I see nodding heads. So to make life easy, I just grabbed the first day presentation I do with my students. Wherever I'm teaching, I introduce myself after I learn a little about them. And at the moment, I'm teaching at the University of North Carolina in Asheville. This is a one-year contract. It's a visiting lecturer of strategy position. What does that mean? It basically means that they needed somebody to teach the capstone strategy courses, plus some marketing courses, and pick up a whole ton of advisees so that everybody else could have more time off. So they created this part-time, one-year position, not part-time, and asked me to come down and teach it. I live in Buffalo, New York, so what I've done is I've just gotten an apartment here in Asheville, and I come down here and stay for the 10 months that the school year will last. My background is that my father was a Navy officer. As a result, we lived everywhere. Typical location was 3 years in one place, born in Auburn, Alabama, and lived in a lot of different places as a child, including Taiwan. And as an adult, lived in a variety of parts of the U.S., as well as England, Canada, China, Germany, and Vietnam. I'll go a little more detail on that. I have an undergraduate degree, a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Maryland in 1974. I double majored. One major was radio, television, and film production. The other major was mathematical linguistics in philosophy. 20 years later, Kodak sent me to the University of Rochester when I was working for Kodak, and I got an MBA from the Simon School. Simon School is quantitative, so I would say that was predominantly a finance-based MBA. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Buffalo, part of the State University of New York. When I started teaching in 2012, and I'll go into that a little bit, I experiential learning because I had used it throughout I decided to go ahead and try to get a PhD and experience. Somebody is breathing heavily into their microphone. Is it possible for them to mute? Maybe it's the person on the motorbike.
Sorry about that, Ken. My apologies. Trying to catch you on the commute.
Okay. My career was over 30 years. Almost all of it was in the photo industry. When I graduated from the University of Maryland, I went to work for Braun North America, which was a division of Gillette, a photo company, and then started my own sales rep business. A few years later, I went to work for a division of Ciba Geigy, which owned a photographic company called Ilford, if any of you are into photography. And I worked for Ilford in the U.S., in England for 3.5 years, and in Canada. Went to work for Bessler, a small photographic printing enlargement type product company, and eventually wound up at Kodak, and then jumped ship and went to Sprint, which took me down to Florida for the launch of the first digital cell phones network in the U.S., and then on to Danaher, and then on to additional activities, including 10 years of strategy and marketing consulting. So I'd spent my career in business as a senior level executive in marketing and strategic management. I had always wanted to teach, and I got to do that at a low level as an entrepreneur in residence prior to becoming a full regular teacher, a higher education teacher. I worked at one of the incubators at the University of Buffalo, the Baird Research Park, where I worked with the inventors who were being licensed through the university and usually a not PhD, an MBA, JD, or an MBA to help them develop their business strategies and business plans. I also did some work in Rochester for another incubator there, working with a number of, this was all pro bono, it was all free consulting for startups. Now, since starting to teach in 2012 in Vietnam, I've taught at the University of Buffalo, both in the School of Management as the instructor of business. By the way, this was a Rotaract project. Rotaract Club at the university planted, I think, 35 trees and did some other planting along the shoreline of this lake on the campus to try to secure and develop the shoreline there. But I teach primarily strategic management. In the U.S., that's what I teach for the University of Buffalo. In Singapore, I also teach entrepreneurship. This is another image of the University of Buffalo campus in Buffalo, and this is the campus of the Singapore Institute of Management, where University of Buffalo has 1,200 students. Some of them are business, and many of them are in other degree programs. I teach as an adjunct professor in both the MBA and undergraduate program at Canisius College in Buffalo. I teach in the master's program for primarily international marketing, international business at Damon College in Buffalo. And I taught from 2012 to 2017 in Keuka College, for Keuka College, which is a small college in upstate New York in the Finger Lakes, Keuka Lake. And I taught in China and Vietnam. This is an example of one of the campuses in Vietnam where I taught. This would be in Hanoi. This would be the sort of place we'd go for lunch. Many of you have traveled a lot and you've had these experiences. This is the student and staff parking lot here, and this is the street just outside the campus. When I teach, I use project-based learning. In Vietnam, I have the students create a business. They can create whatever business they want. It can be to sell a service or a product, and they have to actually raise money and apply it. In this case, I was teaching leadership. Oftentimes, I'm teaching operations management or international business. The students are applying what they're learning from the textbook and the lectures to their business, and when they're done, they use that money for a charity. I'll come back to that in a minute. Spent a lot of time in the back of motorbikes. Students love to take me out. This was a little pig going to dinner time. And I've seen just about everything. Couldn't find all the pictures. I didn't have the time. I also took a couple trips down to the Mekong Delta. There's an American fellow married to a Vietnamese woman who owns a vintage Vespa tour company. And he rebuilds old Vespas and offers tours all over Southeast Asia. This was one through the Mekong Delta. Just a couple pictures of that. I don't know if anybody else has trouble, but if you put me on a straight line where the risk of falling off is severe, I panic. So I don't have a good time on riding in situations like that. This is an example of one of the charities that they supported. This was a boys' orphanage. The students in their business, when they're raising money, save the money. At the end of the semester, they go to the charity that they have selected. Usually it's either an orphanage or it's a children's hospital, oftentimes a children's hospital serving children with cancer. And they find out what the children or the children's families need. We never give cash because the cash evaporates, but the students will pick out supplies that can be used by the children in the orphanage or the families in the hospitals, and we bring that and deliver it at the end of the semester. I also took a trip down to the Mekong with one of the administrators of the university in Ho Chi Minh City, and we had a wonderful time. If any of you have ridden a motorbike through the Mekong, you'll know that you're riding on 3-foot wide trails with swamp on either side, and it was just absolutely wonderful. I also taught in China. This is the campus of China where I taught for Keuka College. Again, this is a busload of students going to a charity to deliver the goods that we had purchased for them. And this is just one of the classes at Jimei University in Xiamen, China. I've taught a lot. This is an eye chart. I show this to my students to tell them, don't ever show me a slide like this because you can't read it. And I point out that what you should do is summarize the information. So I've taught since 2012, when I ended my professional career, at 4 universities, 2 Vietnamese universities, and in 4 countries, and continue to teach right now in the U.S. And my slides are just frozen. Hang on. Okay. I was in the Army from 1968 to 71. I was stationed, I spent a year in the U.S., a year in Vietnam, a year in Germany. This is in Grafenwehr in Germany, where we did maneuvers. I was in an 8-inch self-propelled howitzer unit, and I was communications chief in charge of the communications unit for a company of the howitzers. In Vietnam, I was primarily communications chief, but I also got an MOS, military occupational specialty, as a combat photographer. So I did a bit of combat photography while I was there. I live in Lockport, New York, near Buffalo. And I love giving a little quiz with the students: which side is America, which side is Canada. Some of them get it, and then there's always a test question, which is, what is the country that your professor can drive to in less than 20 minutes? And 2/3 of the students usually answer Mexico. This is Buffalo in the summertime, Niagara Falls in the summer. It's my family, my wife Lori, oldest daughter Marguerite, who's in real estate investment, working in New York City. Youngest daughter Rosaline, who's a PhD student in anthropology, also working for the American Museum of History for a couple of years on contract in New York. And middle daughter Bonnie McAfee, who's working out in Portland, Oregon. The daughter's, again, the youngest, the oldest, who's been in construction and real estate industry investment for a while, and Bonnie. And my wife Lori, picking pumpkins a couple years ago, and that's me. I'm done. Stop sharing. And I've been in Rotary. I didn't put Rotary in this because the students don't really get the Rotary bit, but I joined Rotary in England in 1986. I was the only American and the youngest person in the club. I moved on to Rotary in Canada. I left Rotary for a while and then rejoined again when we were back in the Buffalo area, and have been active in Rotary for several years there. I'm done. You can talk.
Very good. Excellent.
Good
Quite a
insight.
colorful background.
Sorry? What?
Quite a colorful background.
Yeah. Love to travel. You guys do a lot of travel. I love to travel and built my life around it.
Paul, you mentioned your area of specialty in the PhD program. Would you repeat it, please?
Sure. I went over that pretty quickly. So I spent 30 years in senior level executive roles at a number of companies. And over that time, I developed people who worked for me. And of course, you naturally do it by mentoring them, coaching them, giving them tasks to do, and helping them with those tasks so they learn new skills. When I started teaching, my normal intuition was to give the students a task to do and help them learn how to do the task. Technically, that's project-based learning. You give them a project to do. It's an open-ended project. There's no clear-cut outcome. There's no right or wrong result. And the students are applying what they're studying in the project. So by the end of the semester, they summarize what they've learned from that. And I've had them do virtually everything. That group I showed you was selling fruit that they had purchased and were reselling. But it eventually got to the point where in a 7-week semester, where we did the whole 45 contact hours in 7 weeks, I had one group do a concert, bring in the most famous Korean singer, the most famous movie star, a bunch of rock musicians, and make $1,800, which is a year's income in Vietnam, in about 4 weeks period of time. They did they produced the concert, filled the room, and sold the tickets and made all that money. And they were studying operations management, so they had to report on the process by which they developed that project and how they made it happen. So that's what I'm studying in my PhD. I'm studying the theory and the science behind how people learn by doing, as opposed to sitting in lectures and reading and taking tests.
So Paul, how long have you been riding motorcycles?
My first bike I got in 1966. I left a whole bunch out of this story. So I went to school in 1966 and flunked out, which is why I wound up in Vietnam. And I bought a 250cc Honda and rode it for a while. I rode it to and from school at the University of Maryland, and then sold that and got a 650cc Honda that had been chopped and raced in Daytona. So 66, 67 was my first bike. I got back into it when my middle daughter wanted a motorcycle to take out to LA to ride when she was in college. And I made her, she bought it. She bought it on her own, but I made her take motorcycle safety school and took it with her. And she discovered that this was a bike that some guy had bought for his wife, and it was a crotch rocket, and his wife wasn't scared of it. So she got it for an incredible price with only about 100 miles on it. And when she realized she had to drive at 600 miles, below 50 miles an hour, she handed me the keys and said, "Dad, give me the bike back after you break it in." So she did that, and a year later, I bought another motorcycle. Many years after the first bike, I bought my next motorcycle.
Oh, that's great that she rides.
Sorry?
That's great that she's interested in motorcycles as well. And she kind of
I have
picked it up.
two daughters bought motorcycles and rode them. Both of them have since sold them, and you know they're busy doing other stuff, so riding motorbikes. But they both have loves. They both love bikes.
Yeah, that's cool.
What about your
And
hobbies?
when they come visit, sorry, go ahead.
What about your hobbies? Almost said potties.
Oh, you know one of my hobbies, don't you? I love flying a drone. I could do an hour presentation on pictures I've taken teaching all over the world, and I could do another hour presentation on drone photos that I've taken now pretty much all over the world. I've been doing drones for about 4 years. Scuba diving, but I haven't been scuba diving in a very long time. When I worked for Sprint, our office was in Boca Raton, and we lived in Coral Springs, and we were having a house built from the ground up, and it took them a year to build it. So I lived in an apartment. My wife stayed in Rochester until we got the house built, and I went scuba diving every weekend. That's one of my favorite sports. I've also studied flying. I never finished the flying test because I changed jobs and moved and didn't get to close the loop on that. But right now it's scuba diving, photography. It's drone flying and photography, and riding the motorcycle when I can.
Very good.
Scott, can you talk to us? What are you doing and where are you?
Well, I can.
Is my mic muted?
He's on a bike.
Hear you now.
Somebody unmute me.
Got
Can
you
somebody
muted.
unmute me?
You're unmuted.
Thank you. Yeah, so right now I'm just on the way home from work. I figured I'd try and catch a meeting. You folks on the East Coast, you all get up too early and get home too early for me. So, yeah, I'm going from South San Francisco back to Alameda. Paul, did you get a chance to ride with any of those folks in Singapore that I suggested?
No, I did not. Trying to remember if I reached out to them. The chore that I've had is that since 2013, I've been teaching, traveling, and working on my PhD, and I've had a hard time getting away. I might go back to Singapore this fall, and I've saved all the information you sent me. So I will follow up with, I think I reached out to a couple of them, but I couldn't organize renting a bike and getting together with them. Thank you for that.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I might be back in Singapore this fall sometime. I'm not sure yet. It depends on a business project I'm working on.
Well, this year I'm locked into Asheville, North Carolina, but if they don't renew the contract here, which I don't think they will, it's a 1 year, I'll contact UB and possibly go back to Singapore next fall.
Cool.
I would love to ride. I'd like to go up into, from Singapore up into Malaysia and ride around a little bit.
Nice. I don't know if you folks saw, I put up on biobikers.com a recent trip that I took with IFMR over in Germany and France while I was traveling on business. So a little 5-minute video I made of the whole thing.
Cool.
Share the link when you can.
Yeah, I'll throw it up in the email, but it's just biobikers.com.
biobikers.com. Okay.
Yeah, it's also on our webpage.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda.
I'll look.
You're welcome.
I am researching bike rentals. My bike repair guy was supposed to bring my bike down for me, but he kind of crapped out on me. So it's still up in Buffalo. So I'm going to see about renting a bike, maybe when the fall colors are out. Throwing my drone is in a backpack, so I can throw it on my back, hop on a bike, and you can't take drone pictures. You can't fly a drone in national parks, which means the Blue Ridge Parkway is off limits. But I can get off the parkway and go up into some private land, perhaps, and take some drone photos of the foliage.
I think your trip, the group trip out to the Smokies, is a week or two after my trip out there. So maybe I'll put up some preview stuff for you folks. There's a bunch of guys that I've worked with over the years, and this is going to be year 14 or something of our Smokies trip. So I'll share what I see in News of the Roads and whatnot.
Anybody else have questions?
I'm done talking about me, so I'm going to sit back and listen.
What do you guys want to talk about? Brian's running late, so if he doesn't show up, there'll be no board meeting today. How's that sound? Hey, I got to see Jansen last weekend too when we were up in Virginia. If you remember, she spoke at the club in March.
But Linda, you mentioned Brian, and look who appears.
Oh, yeah.
Like a bad penny, he turns up.
You got that right.
Oh, good. You can take over.
Nice job, Linda.
Glorious leader is here.
Who's that?
Brian, you should be proud of Linda. She did an absolutely excellent job, I think.
Uh-huh. Not.
Linda always does an excellent job.
Smart man.
So Brian, shouldn't you be saving patients from death or something?
Well, you know, I should be. But right now, I'm actually practicing cases for my it's another exam that I've got coming up. That's a clinical skills exam.
Oh, great.
Yep. But my knowledge exam, I just passed it handily.
Yeah.
My
Good
score
for you.
back, so
Good for you.
that was the hard part. And I had to wait a month to get my score back. That was hard too.
Look, you're not going to be looking for volunteers as subjects to practice on, are you?
I have all the volunteers I need right here.
Yeah. All right. Good.
We have been practicing cases day and night for weeks because I'm going to Pennsylvania on Sunday, and I take my my clinical skills exam, and it's a 12-hour bloody day.
Oh.
Where in Pennsylvania are you going?
You know, I don't even know where it is. I've just got an address.
Do you have a city?
Oh, it's in Philadelphia. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in Philadelphia.
I mean, that's going to come in handy on Monday.
The address will, yeah.
You got your number one assistant there?
Yeah, we got number one son here.
Cute.
Oh, Okay. So how's everybody doing? Paul, you're still losing weight. Looks like, are you running every day?
No, he's not eating.
Sorry, I was muted and my mouse lags when I'm on Zoom. I don't know why. No, I've just been careful with what I'm eating, just working on it. I need to lose another 30 pounds and then I'll be happy.
You look amazing.
Well, you're in the
That's
wrong
great.
place,
Where are you going to lose 30 pounds?
especially in
I
Asheville.
don't do, but it would
Great
upset
food
most of the
in
people on the call. It's right under here.
Yeah.
There's great food in Asheville. How can you lose
Yes,
weight?
it is. Very good food.
Yeah.
And I just spent the weekend in Buffalo and in New York City. If anybody's ever been to Victor's, the Cuban restaurant on 52nd Street, one of the best restaurants in the world.
Oh,
My daughter, it's a family thing. I've taken my kids there for 30 some odd years. And my daughter took me there and a number of other good places.
love Cuban food.
It's all here. We get a lot of Cuban food.
Oh my God, yeah, in Miami. How can you not find it?
Yeah. It's every other restaurant.
Plantains and the Cuban sandwiches pressed tight.
Yeah, and yuca and beans and
yuca,
rice.
Absolutely. That's good.
And the ropa vieja.
I'm just not big on Roja, or is it mojo?
Mojo?
Yeah, mojo. It's so strong with garlic. But keeps the vampires away.
Well, you're so pretty, Harold. You got to keep the vampires away.
I owe it all to my wife. Yeah, you should laugh, Linda.
Well, I got to tell you guys, I really thank you for being patient with me this season. It's just been it's been crazy, and I've been pretty vacant. So I really appreciate your patience.
So can we stop being patient now?
Not until next a couple of weeks from now, and then you can stop being patient.
Okay. Darn.
What you've been going through, Brian, so it's not easy.
You're gonna do well. Finish.
This is not the hard part. The hard part is over.
Awesome. Whoa. Is that the restaurant?
That's
Oh,
Victor's.
wow.
Nice.
Where is this?
52nd Street, right up from Times Square in New York City, right off of Broadway, 52nd Street off Broadway.
That's no small footprint for a restaurant there.
Yeah. Rico.
Let me see what you had to eat.
Here's they got lots of good pictures. Can you see your Ronald Reagan?
Yep.
Yep.
It's a famous restaurant. I recommend it. If you're in the city, here's Gloria Estefan.
Hi, Kylinda.
What it looks like from the outside.
Like, you would probably miss it driving by.
I love Scott's presence on the meeting here. He's just rolling along.
Yeah, he
Trying to
is.
be quiet.
No, it's awesome. It reminds me of that show, that British show with the guys. What was that called?
Oh, the two guys?
Yeah, the two guys, and they had
Yeah.
Stig. It reminds me of Stig, the race guy.
Yeah. Well, we want Scott to concentrate on his riding and be safe. You know, we talked about safety moments. This is a good time to interject a safety moment. Omni-aware.
Yeah. Got to
He's
keep my
hands-free.
teaching job, right?
He's hands-free
Right.
on Bluetooth.
Ride
At
defense.
the moment, I'm not splitting lanes either, but there's always something going on inside the head besides just the driving.
That's a whole nother world, splitting lanes.
It is. It's kind of exciting. It's kind of like going into the Death Star trench on Star Wars. Got to watch out for the turbo lasers.
I tried it going north on Interstate 5, and the pucker factor was intense.
But how fast was the traffic going, Harold?
Hardly at all. It was hardly moving at all. That's why I was compelled to do like everybody else and split lanes. But in my mind, I kept looking at all of the car doors, waiting for the slightest movement of a door opening on me. And it never happened, but still, you know, I've got a sick mind. I think about people doing that.
The preponderance of the
you-
research shows that your chances of getting rear-ended in traffic is far outweighs the dangers of splitting lanes, and that's why they approved it in California. And I wish they would approve it in other traffic dense areas.
Yeah,
Well,
like
there's plenty of other places that are looking at it.
Florida's got it. Miami's got it, don't they?
no,
We don't even have a helmet law in Miami.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I've
Stupidity
been doing it
is
down there for
encouraged.
years.
Stupidity is encouraged in Miami.
Okay, I'm gonna ask, what do you mean by splitting lanes? Because I,
Oh, yeah. Okay. Scott?
I wish I had the forward-facing camera going or something for you, but well, I've got the Sena Bluetooth on the helmet. It's the 10C Pro that's got the camera on it, right? So there are times I've taken a couple pictures and sent that along to people. It's like, you were splitting lanes while you're on a conference call? It's like, yeah. And it's not quite as good if there's a WebEx and they're trying to show charts and figures on my phone, which is the RAM X grip on the handlebars. That's a little too much. But yeah, while splitting lanes. I mean, hey, you know, lupus is R2D2.
Scott?
Yes.
Answer Dave's question about what is splitting lanes.
Yeah, tell us
Splitting
about
lanes. Okay, so it's sharing a lane. Technically, legally, the name of it is lane sharing, and it's sharing lanes kind of along the right door handles of the car in the fast lane. There's a bunch of different guidelines that CHP had originally published until some other bureaucrat made them take it down. General guidelines are don't be more than 10 miles per hour over ambient traffic speed. And law is written such that if there's contact with a motorcycle splitting lanes, it's pretty much the motorcyclist's fault. But for California-style traffic jams, it's excellent. I wouldn't want a car out here. There's no way I would do my commute in a car.
that must be really interesting. If you've got side bags and stuff, you're a little bit wider, right? So I could see it in the old days, the narrow bikes without the bags and stuff, but boy, that'd be bulky.
I did that on my GS. My
Yeah.
GS has big bags.
Yeah.
Well, some people put city lids on them, which is a flatter lid on the BMWs, not the full-size lid on the bag, and then you can split a little bit better.
Yeah.
Can you do it on a trike?
No.
Oh, God, no.
I think it's too wide.
Yeah, or
So
even
I
the
measured
Piaggio MP3 or something like that.
I measured
I'm
the
making a
bar
little bit of
span. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm making a little bit of a movie right now that I'll put up just so you can see what I'm trying to dance between here on the ST13. I'll send
I
a link or
see.
something.
I see trucks over your right shoulder every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes it's a little cozy, but, you know, a lot of Bay Area drivers really are pretty polite around letting motorcyclists through. So that's a good thing.
So I measured the bar. I thought the same thing about my bagger, and I measured the bar span of my FJ, and the span across the bags. And it's only a couple inches different. It's really not a lot. The widest part easily is the bars. If I pulled my bags off, there would be no issue.
Yeah, it's one thing I like about the ST13 is the bags are such that if I can get the nose through, I can get the back through.
Yeah.
I think when they developed lane splitting, the concern then was all motorcycle engines were air-cooled. They were compelled to sit in traffic with all of the cars. Literally, they would overheat and shut down. So it kind of generated this interest in looking for an alternative method of getting motorcycles safely through traffic without causing undue calamity breaking down in a lane of traffic. So California.
Yeah, I think that was Genesis. Yeah.
Yes, please. But now, so many bikes are water cooled, so that no longer is technically an issue. But we still like it.
Well, the CHP is one of the biggest proponents of keeping it legal, which is nice.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Well, they're also very well trained, and people they have the mindset that they want to make it work, and so it works. If you were to interpose something like that here in South Carolina, I don't know, Billy Bob might blow a rear tire out there. Shotgun. Just saying.
Just like Easy Rider.
Yeah, just like Easy Rider.
Thanks for the explanation.
Scott, do you know the lane width?
I think it varies. The Bay Bridge is a little bit tighter, I think, now than the 92 bridge, the San Mateo Bridge. But the 92 is more recently widened. So I think it really depends on what roads you're on. But I don't know why. I mean, I haven't stopped to measure the street.
The way that people get into trouble with their lane splitting is trying to go too fast. We're actually down in LA right now visiting my son, and people just fly down between the diamond lane and the regular left lane. And there's a little bit of increased space there, but they'll go, 30, 40, 50 miles over what the traffic is going. And it's just crazy. And there's an awful lot of accidents also.
Yeah.
But
that's
done
just a recipe
right,
to die.
it's done right. It's really nice. I mean, I don't have to do it much in my area because there isn't that much traffic. But when we come down to Southern California or go up north, when I go up to Sacramento occasionally, it really comes in handy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the biggest reasons I'm still on the bike.
Scott, your Bluetooth microphone is amazing. I can't hear any road sound at all, and you're not like over the top of anybody. What's your headset?
This is the Sena 10C Pro. Awesome. And now they just come out with the 10C Evo as well, which is a slightly newer model. I had the 10C before that, and I used that one for 3 or 4 years. I get a lot of comments like that. The noise cancellation is really good in all of them.
Yeah.
And the video quality is not as good as you're going to get out of a GoPro, and it doesn't have the image stabilization. But for something that's all integrated into one thing, it's really nice.
Hey, Scott, how's your wind noise in that helmet?
It depends on what bike I'm riding. So I'm on the ST1300 right now with the power windshield, And, you know, when I get it up to around 80, then it's hard to really resolve words as well in the headset. Certainly on the Sprint 955, it's even tougher. But anything below that, it's pretty good. And the Sena has an option for overdriving the sound control because I'm wearing ear filters as well under the helmet. So just selectively amplifying whatever's coming through the speakers. Now, Sena has a new helmet out too that has active noise cancellation in the helmet. I think that's kind of the future. We ought to see more of that, like the Bose technology or something.
Okay, I got a message for Bruce. I'm trying to respond to you, but my keypad's not working. The answer to your question is yes. I was in France a couple of weeks ago.
That's right. How was it?
We spent most of our time in Normandy, which is about the size of New Jersey, and I didn't want to come back. Speaking of lane splitting, in Europe and in India, they have no problem with lane splitting. Of course,
Really?
the society is used to it.
Huh.
Yeah. Singapore is good that way too.
I'm gonna check with the driving speed of in New York City. That man was a little aggressive. He wanted a lot of money. And my daughter gave one of the guys $10, and then everybody else wanted $10. See you all.
Yeah, I'm going to check out of the net and fix whatever's wrong with my computer. See you guys next week.
Yep.
Yeah.
See you, John. Good to see you again.
The dog's in the yard. All right. Home sweet home.
All right.
Thanks for the ride, Scott.
Nice to have you all along. Any of you folks have experience with Airhead Beamer brake systems?
No.
No.
Never.
I'm more of a hex head Beamer guy.
Yeah. Here's this guy.
I know somebody
Oh,
that
good.
has a lot of experience with it. If you want to talk to somebody about it.
Yeah, I've got some local folks here too, but Reed here and I did some work on the R65, and now when it sits for a while, the front brake caliper kind of hangs, the drag, and if I bleed a little pressure out of the bleed screw, it's fine for a while. And then if it sits too long, especially when it's warm, the front brake starts dragging again.
Could that be a master cylinder problem where it's taking
Maybe.
pressure? Yeah.
It could be.
That's what I was thinking myself. It sounds like it's the valve in the master cylinder not letting it return all the way.
Losing some pressure.
Yeah.
Well, that and pull the, if you pull the caliper apart, grease the pins that it sits on.
Yeah. We rebuilt the calipers, and it was almost like when I got the bike, it'd been sitting for probably 13 years or something. It was almost like there was honey and sand mixed in the bottom of the master cylinder.
Okay, well, brake fluid and clutch fluid will go bad after about 3 years. It'll start gumming up.
Yep, it certainly did. There we go. So I am going to head in. There's a board meeting right after, is that right?
That's an interesting question. Are we having a board meeting? I don't know. Let's see. I guess we do have minutes from last board meeting. Do you, would you rather not have it tonight? We can do it another time. I don't think we have a lot to talk about, but we do have a lot to revisit. We do have a lot to revisit and sort of follow up on. But honestly, I'm not prepared. So.
Sure. I'm walking into the house with the kids and whatnot, and so got to take the oldest to the Apple store to fix something. So,
Yeah, let's
anyway.
You could put it off till next month and just do everything next month.
Yeah. I think we have a consensus for that.
Sounds good to me too.
Sure sounds like it.
Yeah. Glenda is doing an amazing job taking care of a lot of things that I should be taking care of. So I really appreciate that. And Rory, you caught her up on our last decision about the membership dues. I saw that. I appreciate that. I don't think there's anything that's burning.
No. Just for your information and Glenda's, I'm going to send that to you every month.
Okay, that gives me a few months to get the letter ready to send out to those who haven't paid their dues.
I really appreciate the help, Glenda. Thanks so much.
No problem. So if you haven't paid your dues, get them paid up, people.
I don't think that we're the problem.
My 3 favorite words, send me money.
Yep.
That's right.
Will you send Guido if they don't?
Digital Guido.
Digital Guido?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm off to Lafayette, Louisiana after next month on the 18th to interview at a residency program there through Louisiana State University.
Coon-ass country.
Beautiful area.
Oh yeah.
And the medicine's good. It's rural. I like that. So I'm excited about that. And it's my first interview offer, so you're not going to turn those down.
Let us know if you need some references.
My life is a reference. I just can't tell you.
Smart
the letters
man.
I've had to put together, oh my God.
Larger than life.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it goes from the whole gamut, right? You know, you train with some physicians who say, you know, oh yeah, you know, I want to write you a letter, and they do a great job, and it's great. And then some say, you know, you write the letter, bring it to me, I'll sign it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh, there's nothing worse than writing your own letter. You know.
Yeah, that's tough.
So.
How do you think I got promoted so many times?
Yeah, we're wondering about that, Terry.
I mean, cut and paste out of, you know, the general's letters are easy.
The truth finally comes out.
That's right. That's right.
Hey, Brian,
What's
how long does the residency last?
So I'm interested in internal medicine and family medicine, and those residencies last 3 years.
Yeah.
So the first intern year, you know, you're just learning, and then the second 2 years you get more independent all the time. I'm just looking forward to getting out of Miami and being someplace where my motorcycle is more
A little
usable.
safer. Yeah.
Yeah, more usable.
Yeah. 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 Miami can get pretty dicey.
I grew up in Scott's neighborhood down there in the Bay Area. That's where I learned to ride motorcycle.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what it looks like.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Movie right now that I'll.
Yeah.
See what I'm trying to dance between here. So it gets the phone call in there too. Anyway. Oh yeah. Sometimes it's a little cozy, but you know, a lot of Bay Area drivers really are pretty polite.
It's still chatting away here.
Motorcyclists through.
Okay, sorry.
So that's it.
That's good stuff.
It keeps life interesting. You know, it's the nice thing about motorcycles is, I think, as we all know, it makes a lot of things more real. There's no existential threat there. There's like, okay, real steel and stuff like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had a little YBR 125 on the island where I went to medical school, and somebody that's in St. Martin, the guy who I gave the bike to, I bought that bike for $1,600, brand new off the showroom floor, and I just rode the thing flat out for 2 years. It was just a wonderful little monster, and you can't buy those things here in the States, and geez. It would be so much fun to have one of those here. It was a little enduro kind of thing, and man, it was a neat bike. I miss it now that I think about it, you know.
Well, there's nothing nimble about the ST13, and so when Paul was talking about his scooters and stuff, it was like, oh, I'm kind of jealous.
Yeah.
Can I copy this? Yeah, that's what it's doing. Okay. Crack a browser open here and just upload that little thing and send a link for anybody who wanted to see what else the lane splitting is like. Have any of you done like a Rotary Leadership Academy?
Many years ago.
I have.
5170's got one coming up this fall, and I've been a little bit out of touch with the local club because of my work schedule. But That's something that we got coming up that sounds kind of interesting.
Oh, it's very interesting. If you can make it, you'll enjoy it. Whether you're in line for a leadership position or not, really gives you a heads up on what.
Yeah, it's a very good program. I went through it.
There's 3 levels of it.
Did you say there's 3 levels of it, Linda or Glenda?
Yeah, 3 levels, and it's just it just really explains how Rotary works. So I was actually shocked in my club that I was part of. The long tenured members, most of them hadn't done it, and I think everybody should do it.
So whether you want to be a leader or not, it's excellent for just teaching you what Rotary is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth it.
Now, is this a district-sponsored, like, brick-and-mortar event, or do they teach it online? What's the?
No, it's usually a zone. It's usually a zone event that's putting it on. Like, we'll have. I know that Blacksburg, Virginia, is hosting it right now, or coming up shortly, and it's also going to be in Norfolk, and it's going to be in someplace in Georgia, so I mean, these are zone people usually doing them.
Oh, here locally in District 5050, it was the district that did it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they swap between Canada and here close to where I live, back and forth. So there's usually one in Canada and one in the US every year.
I mean, there's enough of them around Zone 33 and 34, which is eastern side of United States, that if you wanted to just travel for a weekend or 2, you could get them done in, a month.
And the club, they're all do, club paid for it.
It sounds like a neat opportunity. I'm trying to figure out, fitting it in.
If you
How much is it,
Scott,
Scott?
you will not regret.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. How much is it?
I don't remember. I didn't think there was a fee associated with it for $51.70, but I have to double check.
Okay.
I think it was $5 when I went.
Yeah.
When I went through, I didn't pay anything. It was picked up by the district.
Oh, here it was the club. I didn't even
It may have been. It may have been the club.
I didn't even turn it into my club. I just paid it. It was worth it.
That's what it was. Ta-da. Okay. Just pasting the video, the YouTube link into the chat if anybody wanted to get a better view of splitting on their own screen. So.
Oh, nice. All right.
I am nerding.
Scott, would you also mind emailing that to me if you can at some point?
Yeah, I can do that.
I can't really paste. I can't really copy it on my iPad.
Okay.
But I'd like to include it in the next newsletter for fun.
You can get me in trouble.
Well, it's all among friends. I won't post it if you don't want me to, Scott.
That's all right. I made it an unlisted link for a reason. But... Here we go. Let's see. Brian, well, you're getting the personal copy here. Brian Green. There's the link. Boom. In your inbox.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Well, somebody want to do the 4-way test?
Well, I can.
Oh, well.
All right.
The things they do, daily activities. Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it
fair to all concerned?
3, will it build
goodwill and
better
friendships?
And number 4, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And of course, number 5, will
Will it be fun? All right.
Hope
Does
everyone has
anybody
a
have
great
anything
week.
else? Does anybody have anything else for the good of Rotary?
Nope.
All right.
Have a good week. Ride
All right,
carefully.
everybody have a good one. We'll see you next week.
Good night,
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Linda.
You're welcome.
Bye, Brian.
See you guys later.